Greetings, St. Barnabas members and friends. So in today's reflections on the Lord's Prayer, I want to pick up again on kind of the macro picture of the Lord's Prayer as a guide for the spiritual journey. And I want to do that drawing upon the brilliant work of Thomas Keating. So Father Keating's work, his intention was to unite or integrate the many centuries of the Christian spiritual heritage or the Christian contemplative heritage, to unite that with the wonderful teaching of modern psychology. And Father Thomas said that as rich as our Christian contemplative heritage is, the work of modern psychology more particularizes the teaching in our great heritage, and uniting them was one of his goals in all of his work. And so what he popularized was what he called the emotional programs for happiness and cultural conditioning, the three emotional programs for happiness and cultural conditioning. And those three programs are the need for survival and security, the need for affection and esteem, and the need for control and power, the three basic needs of the human experience. And again, drawing on modern psychology and our spiritual heritage, Father Thomas taught that on the one hand, we all need those things, but experiencing ourselves as separate from God, of course we're not separate from God, but we experience ourselves as separate from God. The pain of that, the trauma of that, causes us to over-identify with those emotional programs for happiness. So we become over-attached to, over-identified with, obsessed with the need to feel safe and secure, obsessed with the need to feel esteemed and loved, and obsessed with the need to have control and power over our lives. And in that being over-identified with that, we create what I call a self-made self. Father Thomas calls it the false self. For me, it's perhaps more descriptive to call it the self-made self. I make a self in my own image that will make me feel safe and esteemed and powerful. And especially in the early stages of human development, we need that. It's not, as Father Thomas teaches, a colossal failure. It's an essential need. But then to grow in relationship with God is to begin to let go of that self-made self and live into the true self that emerges immediately from God, to live into the divine indwelling and the true self emerging from God. Then there's a fourth theme that Father Thomas called cultural conditioning. And it's perhaps the most difficult, because long before we were choosing rationally in our early development, what was being imparted to us on our unconscious or pre-rational conscious was all the values and view of the world of our culture. And so very early on, before we were ever choosing, these values get imprinted on us and end up controlling us unconsciously or not rationally, controlling our sense of what it means to feel safe and secure, loved and esteemed and powerful and in control. So the spiritual journey, is about letting go of that self-made self and allowing the Spirit to create and develop the new self in Christ, is what St. Paul calls it, or as Father Thomas called it, the true self, the self emerging immediately from God and has the image of God imprinted all throughout the true self or the new self in Christ. So, turning again to the Lord's Prayer, it beautifully addresses all of those four themes of the journey. When we begin with Abba, we begin with entering into, sinking into relationship with Abba. That starts to reframe our cultural conditioning. We're entering, rather than seeking the approval of our culture, rather than finding our belonging in how our culture defines our goodness and our value, we begin to find the affirmation of our very being in our relationship with our God as Abba. And we keep entering into relationship with Abba. We keep sinking into the God who is nearer to us than our own breathing and who loves us with an unbounded, unlimited love. If I can say it this way, a dear love, an intimate, close love, the God who knows us through and through, and the God who calls us beloved. So we're entering into that relationship, and our value is not determined by our culture. Our value is determined by our heavenly Abba, who loves us as God's own dear child, could not love us. And especially when we're hung up with all of our challenges and our problems, love reaches and extends to us to the nth degree. And this is what Jesus models over and over and over, through and through. The God who has come to be with us and for us. And so the Lord's Prayer, beginning with this Abba of us who dwells in the heavens, just invites us to keep entering into relationship with this God and let that transform us, transform our notions of where we get our deepest approval, our deepest belonging, the deepest affirmation of our very being comes out of this relationship. Then it invites us to dismantle the self-made self. So let be hallowed your name. That is to say, it's not about my glory. It's not about my fame. It's about the hallowing of the name of God. And there's a really valuable truth here. It's hard to grow from a negative intention. Rather, it's a positive intention that is so much more helpful. So on the one hand, it's true we're letting go, but the focus really isn't on letting go and the negativity of that. The focus is on the intention to let God do the work in us. The focus is on the intention of hallowing the name of God. So it's a wonderful, positive intention. You hallow your name. And it's about the hallowing of your name, not my fame. Then you let your kingdom come. Let the kingdom of you let the kingdom of you come in me and in us. So it's all about the kingdom that you build, not the kingdom that I build for my safety and security. My safety and security, the safety and security, the well-being of the world is your kingdom, not my kingdom, not any other earthly kingdom. Hear it deeply. Not any other tribe, not any nation, not any earthly kingdom is the deepest safety and well-being of me and the world. It's your kingdom. And so again, it's a positive intention. Let come the kingdom of you. And I'm asking God to do that work in me that I know, on the one hand, I give myself to it every day. And on the other hand, what I really need is for you to do the work in me. And in the same way, let become or happen the will of you, not my will, not me having power and control and influence, but your will. Let become your will, as it is in heaven, also on earth. And so, again, the Lord's Prayer, ever so practically and poignantly, leads us into growth and transformation, the emergence of our true self, the growth of our new self in Christ as we let go of the self-made self. What I like to say is, do the prayer and the prayer will do you. Pray this prayer. Practice this practice. Set aside times in your day to pray this prayer with intention. Pray it with presence. And little by little, it'll work its way into your conscience, into your conscious and your unconscious mind. And then throughout the day, you'll find it emerging through the circumstances of your day. You'll find when one or more of the petitions will arise within you. Let become your will, not my will. Let come your kingdom, not my kingdom. It just has a way of arising from deep within us and guiding us throughout the day. So again, there's more to come on this, but I hope you find this helpful. And yes, more to come, and peace to you.